Hey folks, Oliver Graves, and I'm going to talk about some movies today. I hope I edit this. I've left myself this nice blank area to put things into, like I like the idea of a video might pop up or an image. I bet they won't. See how much effort I put into this. I wanted to talk about Madam Web. A lot of people talked about that movie. I don't know if a lot of people watched that movie. But Madam Web is a movie about a woman who has a near death experience, and afterwards, when she comes out of it, she has psychic like powers. She can sort of start to see visions of the future, and that takes her on a journey. She feels she has to sort of do the right thing and save people. She also happens to be a paramedic, emergency response, and there's a villain in it. He's out to kill some people, and it's a very sort of low stakes movie. It's not about saving the world or the universe or the multiverse or anything. It's just this journey of this woman and these girls that she is intermingled with through. They don't say fate or destiny, but it's leaned into. It's hinted at that they were maybe supposed to meet, but there's these elements of sort of psychic mind stuff, and I thought it was a competent enough movie. It is jarringly bad at times, but I appreciate humor, comedy, and I think the humor in it was on purpose. Okay, some of it was not on purpose, but she's the main character, Cassandra Webb, is at a baby shower and she's just obviously awkward. She's obviously out of place. That is, to me, it's a clear choice. It's a clear design of the director, writer, actor that they wanted this character to be that way in these environments. And there's awkwardness when she's at a lunch and things like that. All we gotta hold the soda. Like these are the things that like people are riffing on the movie for. I'm sure she's got to hold a Pepsi. There's gonna be a Pepsi sign. There's Mountain Dew. There's just obvious product placement, and it's awkwardly done because the character is purposefully awkward. Now there are things in the movie that are definitely not on purpose. It's not what they intended, not what they wanted. The whole the whole villain, that actor, I don't think he got to say a single line to camera. Like meaning like how I'm talking right now. It's the words that are coming out of my mouth to the camera. It's being recorded, the audio you hear. Whereas just about everything he does is like ADR'd, meaning they recorded all this footage, but then later they decided they wanted to put in different lines of dialogue so you could have, the back of his head or like his side, or if he's moving fast, you could say different lines, whatever they needed, because there was a lot of edits in post, I'm sure, where he had to come in and do additional dialogue recording. That's what ADR is. But it's like, you know, it's a superhero movie, and there's all these people. They could have done this, they should have done this, the marketing, etc., etc. I'm like, I went into it with my expectations all over the place. So when I watched it, I was like, okay, this is just not. It's just not anything. It's not a superhero movie. It was a neat take on like those kinds of like psychic powers. I wish it did more with it for sure. It didn't do it enough. I think they didn't want to confuse an audience, but there's clever scenes in it. There's things I didn't expect to have happened. It wasn't completely predictable, but it wasn't totally interesting and totally like exciting. It was just fine. Like, but it's a movie. Like movies have been uneven. Like I don't know what people expect out of movies sometimes. It it had this really funny part in it. I'm gonna spoil it because like the villain has like toxic things in him. Like he's not like Spider-Man, but he can like poison people. And then at one point, Britney Spears' "Toxic" is playing to like a fight scene, and I loved it. I loved that happened in the movie. But otherwise, I'm like, I don't get why critics were so hard on it. like everyone was really hard on it. It felt like, and it was just mediocre. Every time there's CPR though, I'm gonna turn into a drinking game. Take a shot every time CPR happens. All right, another movie watched recently is Dune 2. I also watched and checked out. I'm leaving this in. Checked out part 1 of Dune, so I had not seen that. I watched part 1 and then part 2, and I'm not like a Dune nerd. There's a lot about Dune that is in other works. It was a book, came out in the 60s, so it predates Star Wars, and Star Wars took a lot from it. You know, the big sand desert planet Tatooine, obviously, moisture farming, the the voice that the Bene Gesserit and Paul, like when it's like almost like the Jedi mind trick. Like it makes someone do something. Clearly, that's very Star Wars. A lot of things just kind of boil down to like a knife fight. Like two people just need to fight with their knives. And Star Wars very cinematically makes that more exciting. That when two people are just having a knife fight, like they're going to roll their long knives, their swords, they're just having a sword fight. Those lightsaber fights are amazing in Star Wars movies. And that's the one thing about Dune that is not very cinematically interesting. Is the knife fights, I'm like, they were kind of boring. Like honestly, I knew the first one when I was getting up to it because I knew the story of Dune. Like the first movie is going to end in a knife fight. I'm like, okay. And I just kept thinking, like, this would have been cooler if it was a lightsaber fight. It's like, is it really that hollow and shallow of me to think, like, glowing sticks hitting? Like, is this what we needed? Is one of these going around? And I'm like, kinda, yeah, actually. Doesn't this look cool? This looks cool, right? Or would it be cooler if I was using this? Is this cool? There's a difference. I'm just saying. But you can't do lightsabers because then Dune would be ripping off Star Wars. So all that stuff aside, it leans into what it has pretty well to be a cinematically exciting movie with its own world. You know, it's like, how exciting can a big sand dune be? And the way it's filmed, the way it's shot, it's digestible. It's done in a way where I'm like, okay, I appreciated the movie. I appreciated it a lot. I just had all these nitpicks about it, like, because I do know the Dune story and what they could have done, and it's a tough call. The movie deals again with psychics, kind of a theme. All these people can see visions of the future, and as a result of that, they can try to manipulate what happens. Because, like, well, what if I take these actions? What will happen? And in the books, Paul is trying to prevent his and his mother's death. Like, they're stuck on Dune, planet Dune, Arrakis. And Paul tries to think and navigate, what can I do and what will happen if I do this? And all these things that he does just result in more death of more people. Like, he could survive, but it would be at the loss of all of this life, etc., etc. So there's a point in the movie where, spoilers, I guess, should have been at the front, but anyway, that he realizes he is the grandson of the Harkonnen bad guy. It's like, so it's kind of like Star Wars again, you know. Finds out his dad is Darth Vader, but that means the mom, she's the daughter of the Harkonnen guy, and he's like, this is how we're going to survive this. Like, he realizes how they're going to survive, and that hasn't been very dire in the movies. They hadn't really been hammering in that Paul has just been thinking and navigating and trying to find a way to survive. That's what the mom has been doing, and it's, you know, like, it's fine, it's not spelled out, like, but part of me, like, I don't mind when you spell things out, like, a little bit for an audience. Like in the movie The Exorcist, and then you have the version you've never seen before. there's this one, the scene they cut is the two priests talking, going like, why this girl, why, and the other priest says it's to test us. I think it's to test us, and that was cut from the theatrical one, and because the director's like, the audience will pick up on that. They're smart enough. They'll figure it out. They don't need that line. I'm like, audiences aren't always smart, and sometimes it's good to put things on the nose to really tell, as an artist and director, etc. There's nothing wrong with that dialogue, and I don't think there would have been anything wrong with having Paul and his mother be more like, we're trying to get through this. Like, we are Atreides, we're the last of the Atreides. They tried to wipe us out. Although she's not really technically, the mom's not really Atreides. She was never married. But anyway, and that, yeah, they're like, are they pretending to be Fremen to survive, or what's going on? And there's hints of it, but I would have appreciated a little bit more of it, because then Paul takes like the poison that gives him even more clairvoyance, and then he decides to become this prophesized leader, and it's because he saw all these multiple paths, these futures. So they cut down the psychic stuff a lot, and it's a really goofy scene if you look up the Dune Sci-Fi Channel, where the Space Guild's like, we're not going to support you. The Space Guild will not support you, whatever they say. And Paul goes, look to the future. Look, do your thing, and you're going to know I'm for real, and this is what's going to happen. So the Space Guild, which is like not in the movie, like they also can kind of tell. And so I wouldn't have minded layering that in better, and because it gave Paul agency. It's like Luke Skywalker and stuff. I'm gonna always go to Star Wars on this. Sometimes feel like he doesn't have agency. Like, it's his destiny. He has to. The Force. He's being guided, and like he was just gonna go on this journey no matter what. Whereas Paul decided, his mom decided what to do and how to kind of be on this planet, and etc. And why Paul decided to become emperor. Like, I could become emperor. Should I do that? And he decided this is the path of less suffering, and it is a selfish path too, because he could just die, but it's like he has no interest in seeing himself or his mother or various specific people. He doesn't want to see them die as he's becoming more and more of a psychic and all that. They also omitted the time skip in the books and in the movie. There's like a 3-year skip, and Paul's sister is like a little girl, like Aaliyah, and there's pros and cons to that. It tries to set in the sort of more dire circumstances that they're still like kind of scraping by and not sure what to do on Arrakis and if they're going to make it, rather than they've just been surviving for 3 years. It's like, right, that kind of removes the threat if they've just been capable, but it also kind of removes the Fremen accepting them as people. Like, they just do it after, I guess, like 6 months, because the baby's developed more, etc. So they, the weight of him learning, like all these things, it's like, there's, I don't know. I don't really care for the psychic fetus. I think I would have preferred an actor, and I understand you don't want necessarily child actors, but luckily the Bene Gesserit, like, they were like cloaks and stuff. You could have had multiple child actors portray that little girl without having to like overwork anyone, without needing much of a performance out of them. You might be able to have a stand, you might have a dummy. It just needs to sit there, and then you can still overdo dialogue and stuff through psychic means, which I think would have been interesting and fun. They ended up doing it anyway. So I think Austin Butler was great. He was also underused. It's frustrating. There's not a lot of good like dialogue points. The director clearly not in dialogue person. There's no like hot great lines. There's no like good exchanges. The actors don't get to act, and then that is also unfortunately the problem with Dune. A lot of people in Dune are just these emotionless husks. They don't have anything, and that's like on purpose, sort of. I think it's like playing poker. You don't want to show your cards. There's other like nitpicks too. Like the Harkonnens are like so horribly evil, which is a little like weird. It's like that feels really on the nose, whereas like other things you didn't want to put on the nose, like the way they're black and white and a disgusting kind of planet and everything. Where I'm like, that's I'm like, I don't know. They played them up to be the bad guys, and they're not the bad guy. You know, like um, it's supposed to be much more gray, where like everybody's kind of not great. Walken, who played the Emperor, didn't realize he was in the movie. Like it's like he's just standing there. I'm like, does he know he has a line? Does he know he's supposed to say something? Could someone feed Christopher Walken his line, please? Um, I said too many times. I'm not gonna edit that out. I hope I do. But Dune 1 and 2, fine movies. I appreciate a big budget movie that was not trying to be like a blockbuster style. I would have liked a little bit more action. Like they get to the war and it's very quick and very done. I would have liked a little bit more like meat in there. The sandworms going and it's like over already. Otherwise, I did appreciate that it took its time, and I would like to see the third. Dune's never been something I've been really into. It's interesting. There's a lot of things to talk about. I mean, we can get into it later. You want to talk about the furniture? See, in Dune, it's like Amish or something where they aren't allowed certain technologies. That's why there's a guy that like is the human calculator, and if you want like a chair that's like heated and massages you, you can't have a technology that does that. So they genetically engineered an animal to be shaped like a chair that you sit in, and it's like a dog chair or something, and it's weird. It's really weird. Dune's strange, but there's things about it I really appreciate. It. I like talking about the Fermi paradox. I love the space travel in Dune. It's a really interesting concept that's not in the movies, where they use their psychic powers to help navigate their spaceships. Like being able to go to other planets and worlds is done through their clairvoyance. So that's what the spice is for. Like I don't think the movie ever says this, that people use the spice, then they can tell exactly where to go. Because space is constantly like I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Rather than using a supercomputer, I guess in like one of the later books, they did start using a supercomputer, and like that eliminates the spice. Like okay. Anyway, that's all talking about Dune though. So, and Madam Web, and these movies like they're all like old and kind of come out. Like I should probably try to review movies that have like come out. Like Ghostbusters has already come out. Kong's gonna come out. I'm like reviewing like old movies here. So Casablanca is a 1943, 42. It's an old movie. It's old. It's much older than the other things I was talking about. Let's talk about Casablanca, because who cares about how old or new the movie is? Why not? So Casablanca, I don't think there's any anniversary or anything. I rewatched it recently among the various movies that I've been watching lately, and I want to talk about that too. Why not? So this movie is pretty good. It's a pretty good movie, and there's a lot of artistic choices that were done as part of a forced regulation. So I'll get into that. So the movie takes place during World War II. It's actually a very ambitious movie because it was produced during World War II, written, produced, filmed, and then released during World War II. So that's this ever-changing landscape of geopolitical stuff and war, and they were able to get it out and sort of kind of affirmed when it takes place. As it's people, they're in Casablanca. The refugees want to try to get flights to Portugal, and then from Portugal they'll go to America. So that's the sort of the plot is people will be stuck there. They'll try to raise money. They'll try to get out, and there's plenty of people that just live there. And there's an American, Rick, played by Humphrey Bogart, who has his own place. And his introduction is great right away. He's kind of letting you know what kind of character he is. It's a kind of brilliant in writing and directing and acting. Humphrey Bogart is very good in this. And as well, Claude Rains, one of my favorite actors. Right away, you know what kind of character he is. I'll have to come back. I'll come back to Claude Rains. Come back to but the movie is a love story. It's a sort of love triangle that Rick has a woman from his past re-enter his life, and she's there with her husband. And it's like, who knew that she was married? It's like, well, come to find in the course of the movie that she was married when she was with Rick, but at the time she thought her husband was dead, and she finds out he's alive, and this whole affair that she had was sort of, not supposed to happen, and what she's supposed to do, and she left Rick, but then now they can reconnect, and she could leave her husband again, and it's the will they, won't they, and this is where I want to talk about the writing of it. Is even the writers at the time weren't really sure what they were going to do. So in sort of Hollywood code, you weren't allowed to have a woman cheat on her husband in a movie. So that's where this sort of exploratory writing came from, where they're like, well, what if she thought that he was dead? And then in the ending, too, they couldn't have her leave her husband for Rick unless they killed him. So I don't remember the movie that well. He's a
freedom fighter and working against Nazi Germany, leading people against fascism in Europe and beyond.
and he's an upstanding person doing and fighting World War II, and there's even a scene where the Germans start singing their national anthem. He gets all the French to start singing their national anthem, and like that is actually pretty brave. He could have just been thrown in jail, as the German and French sort of neutrality is seeming like less neutral. But I love that the writers had to sort of find a way to make the movie work, and those confines I think ended up making a brilliant movie. That they couldn't do whatever they wanted, but then they had to come up with real reasons for these characters to do these things, that they would have actual motivation, that why they would cheat on their husband. She wasn't cheating on her husband, she thought he was dead. So you can sympathize with all of these characters where they're all just trying to live their life. And it's a very famous ending, so I'm going to spoil it obviously, but like they don't go together. They have this plot device where it's like they have these passes and they get to leave and go to Portugal. Like whoever has these things, the Germans had them. Whoever gets them just gets to go. And so it's like you're going to go and you're going to go with your husband. That's it. That's the way it's going to go, because you're going to go do bigger and better things than any romance. It's like he needs to do what he's doing, and you're going to go with him, because otherwise you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. I'm not going to do a Humphrey Bogart impression. And then he leaves with Claude Rains, and they almost got a sequel, which is crazy. It would have been cool to see the two of them doing something. But Claude Rains speaks very fast. He's a great character actor. I really like Claude Rains. If you know me, I like horror and spooky things. Claude Rains was the original Invisible Man in the 1930s Invisible Man. And then he plays the French Lieutenant General Guard. He's represents the French military, Casablanca, and he does a great accent, and he does a great performance, and I just really recommend the movie, and I highly recommend paying attention to as much as you can, because the lead actors, so also, they take up all the screen time, and they take up all the moments and everything, but the love story gets a little sappy, like it's the whole flashback sequence, I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. They loved each other, whatever. But when they're in Casablanca and you have all these other characters interacting, Peter Lorre, great in it as well, very brief. I was really looking and hoping to find if Peter Lorre and Claude Rains ever had a scene together in a movie, and I don't think they did. If someone knows a movie where the two of them exchange dialogue, because they're both in this movie, but I don't think they ever actually exchange dialogue. They might actually physically be in a scene for like a second or two, but they don't talk to each other. They're both great character actors. I kind of doubt I'm going to have any old Hollywood fans popping in, showing up like, oh yeah, Oliver, I know. Oh, that's one movie. But Claude Rains, you wouldn't recognize him in The Invisible Man because you never see his face in that movie, and his voice entirely different. He is utterly transformed in both of those roles, and one's through the means of like a mask and prosthetics and everything, but just hearing the way he's so nefarious as the Invisible Man, and then he's so just like quick-wittedly charming and dry, and the way the Germans tell him, like, we need to shut this place down. Oh, and he goes, what for? Find a reason. And he blows his whistle like, this place is being shutting down. Like, what for? Did you know there's gambling in the back? Like, where he was just gambling. Like he gets paid his kickbacks and everything, but he's beholden to the sort of war that's at hand, and yeah, it's I would have loved another movie with him and Humphrey Bogart. It's one of those things like, oh, we always want more of that movie, and it wouldn't have had to have touched on that ending or where she goes away. Like, would they reconnect? Like, you got to commit to that ending, but also you can make a sequel to anything. That's something I've talked about. It's just whether or not you find a good story or a fun story, and where to go with a sequel. And yeah, Claude Rains and I keep saying by his actor's name, Humphrey Bogart, going off and having their own journey. It always reminds me of how Star Wars maybe could have kept going. You could have had Luke Skywalker and Lando Calrissian, because have Han and Leia do their ending and have them go on an ending or an adventure. Have Lando and Luke do their own thing, and having these interesting pairings. It's like, yeah, that's almost writing half the movie in itself is just finding these things. So those are three movies that I was going to talk about. I know I'm rambling now, but I honestly kind of recommend all three. They're all very different. You know, Madame Web is kind of schlocky, slumber party vibe, like teeny bopper girl movie, and I was okay with that. Like, I went into it not really knowing what it was. I was okay with that. Dune is dry. It's it's filmed by someone who loves to film, and there's interesting set pieces, and it lets you take in this world at a pace. And again, I wish it explored other things, but it's purposeful in what it's exploring. So it's not a summer blockbuster movie. Casablanca, I feel like, a lot of people might not be into it just because it's old and it's black and white. I'm like, you have to treat it like you're watching a play. Like imagine you're I would almost say, like, go to a theater if it's ever playing in a theater near you and there's gonna be other people. Sit and watch it. And, don't put your phone away and everything, and just enjoy it, because there really is a lot going on in it, and great acting that, again, might not be for everyone. It might be an old style of movie, but I think it deserves its accolades and everything because of how good it was at being its own movie. Which is, I don't know if that sounds pretentious, but that's part of art. Is some people are making abstract, some people are making plein air. Like it I think knew what it was. All three of these movies, I think, knew what they were, and so they were aiming for that, and they landed it. Whether it's schlocky, whether it's this epic art piece, or if it's this romantic story based on or set in the backdrop of, I don't know. I should have ended this video like 2 minutes ago. I probably had a much better ending then. Now it's gonna end on this. Whatever. Thank you. Bye.